Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing. Hello dreamers and thinkers, and welcome back to another episode of Undone. On today's episode, I am joined by Magang, who is the CEO, founder, I don't know, I'm calling you all the things, of Baai Alkebulan. Hopefully that name sounds familiar to some of you. That is the venue and location that we are using for our second debate, which will be on the 22nd, which by the time this comes out should be a week, 8 days from when the event will be. But yeah, I'm so excited to have Magang here. I'm gonna do a little mini spiel. I did write a little something. Magang Reech is a passionate advocate for cultural preservation, youth empowerment, and community development. That's a little one-liner I gave you.
Okay.
Yeah, so before we begin, as you guys know, we're gonna start with the unpopular opinion. Yeah. You're gonna go first.
Unpopular opinion.
What's your unpopular opinion?
I think a lot of our people, sometimes we put our energy into wrong things. We're not truthful with ourselves, you know.
Okay.
Truly, you know, like we always talk about, we have issues like, in our community it could be between men and women, or it could be youth or community disunity.
Yeah.
But we just talk. We're a bunch of yappers in our community. So I think that's my unpopular opinion. I've always said, like, if we really want to do something, we can do it in like a month or two, as a community. That's how good we are.
If we put it together,
Yeah, but we just say it like every meeting, we got to do better. We got to do good. We got to do that. We got to come together. But then people go home and it's like, they just only think about themselves, how they can be kind of like, So yeah, I think people are not truthful, and that goes to my church goers too. And
you have to make it personal. I like that one. I feel okay to share mine because it was equally as serious. Which is that. So this is how I have it written here. Assimilation is a survival strategy, not a betrayal of culture, but that doesn't mean it should be the goal. For my research project in my master's, I was looking at the different migration trauma between the different generations and all that kind of stuff. And one of the things that came up was the different types of assimilation. So when people move to a new country, they can either completely reject the country, the culture and the way of life that the country that they're going to has, or they can completely reject their old culture and completely take on the new culture of the place that they're at, or they can do the one where it's kind of like a hybrid, where it's I'm gonna blend the parts that I like about my new culture and the parts that I like about my old culture, which I believe was called, I think that is what assimilation is, if I remember correctly, is that's the terminology that they use. So I mean, it's great, it's a survival strategy. You do what you gotta do to fit in, feel connected to wherever it is you feel you need to feel connected to, but yeah, I feel like we could work towards a place where people don't feel like they have to blend the two if they don't want to. They can fully coexist as they are in this new space. So
you think it shouldn't be forced in a sense?
Because I mean, people feel kind of forced to be okay, how do I navigate this new space? How do I find what works? Whereas I think there should be an option to just if you want to blend both, you can blend both. If you don't want to, that's okay, but you're still able to function in the new society.
Yeah, but I don't know, I was actually always wondering about that, how sometimes we are forced to integrate. And if you don't, you're like, why did you come here? Some people, they're like, we should have stayed in your country then if you don't want to integrate. What did you find in your research about that?
That is why people tend to then reject their old culture and go into okay, I'm just going to fully adopt the new culture because they feel like they have to, they feel that pressure. What we did find is that, what I did find in the research was that a lot of the older generation will tend to stick to the idea of holding onto the culture that from where they came from and just try not to engage or like reject the new culture, whereas the second generation, which is what I think a lot of us would be, tend to try and find a balance between the two, and then the further down the generations you go, the culture kind of gets lost and blended and mixed up and diluted.
More westernized, or the host nation values get taken on more.
Exactly. So it's a tricky one, which I think leads us beautifully into, if you could explain a little bit about Baai Alkebulan, why you started it, what you're hoping to, you know, achieve with it.
Oh, well, Baai Alkebulan is just everybody's home, you know. It's not really something I can say I started it, because it was just my idea. But the people have really taken it on and are the ones that are driving it. So it's a home for everybody, and I want people to just understand, like, this is meant to be sustainable by the community, for the community. And that is something I've always cried out for, like, you know, we need our own spaces. And I think saying it I wasn't being heard. So I said, all right, I'm gonna start it, and then I'm gonna leave the community to do it by themselves. So that, you know, so now it's gone. We've done 12 months, but the next 12 months is about making sure the community is running it by itself, so that I'm not even needed. I want to be completely unnecessary in this space, because if I'm needed, I haven't done my job.
I love
that. That's the goal. We want to make sure we show people the culture, that they can come and learn about the history, and the young people in the schools can come for excursions and actually come to an establishment that represents the people who are being spoken about and who are speaking. So
I love, and you guys do all sorts of different programs and have different stuff out of the space. We're currently in the new space, freshly moved in. I love what you're trying to create here with like the history and the art and the museum and the library, letting have young Black kids be represented in spaces of culture that they're not usually represented in. Which, I love that. Did that idea come from your experience, or like what you were observing? Why was this something that you kept talking about and were passionate about, to the point that you're like, you know what, I'm going to start this?
Well, we all know we all love a little bit about our cultural, you know, achievements. As you know, I'm from South Sudan. They call us Kushites, you know. And so see, you gotta come and take some history lessons.
I'll be back next weekend.
And so for me, I kind of knew a little bit. But I've got brothers and sisters who are younger than me, and obviously they wouldn't know much about history. And as I grew up here, I was, you know, me and my friends always talk about, you know, their experiences in Ethiopia, my experiences in Sudan and in Uganda, other people's experiences in Kenya. And then we're talking about the history, and we always come back to like, oh, okay, like, let me lend you this book and you'll find out something. And, you know, I borrowed the book from them. And so that sort of cultural exchange of knowledge as well has always been something that when we try to go out to the bookstores, we don't find these books.
That's true.
You know, J.A. Rogers, John Henry Clark, you don't find them there. So when we started sharing our own knowledge, it was like, hey, maybe we should do something where we can really sustain this, you know? And it's really expensive as well sometimes to buy some of these. So we've had to, you know, share a lot of that. So it came from that culture of showing our little brothers and sisters, showing also the bigots that may misunderstand us or be fearful of us, and without any cause. So we want to show that in our own way, tell our own story. And that where it really came from. And some community organizations have really taken to supporting us. And so, that's where it's going now.
I love that. I love that. You didn't explain it. I want you to explain the meaning of the name. Only because for like, when I think it was the last interview we were doing when I was like, oh my gosh, I know what we're gonna like record and talk about for our episode, which is this idea of third spaces. For those who might have never heard the term, the idea is that your first space, or like the space that you belong to or are in, is like your home. So like whether you live with family or whatever the situation is, that's your first space. And then your second space is wherever you work. So wherever you go to make money, whatever that looks like. And then a third space is a space that is outside of those places. So it's not where you have to be because you live there or whatever, and it's not where you go because you have to make money, but these are the spaces that you get to choose to be a part of. And I think historically they've often looked like religious groups or like Rotary clubs, that kind of thing. But for us as African Australians, I don't think we have a lot of third spaces that aren't the club or party. And we don't make the effort to make a lot of those third spaces, or our third spaces tend to be like transient, where it's like someone's done a workshop or they've done a day event or whatever it is, but it's not like a consistent, like this is our community hub, this is where we can come to, you know, that Monday through Sunday something's going to be running through and out of this space. So yeah, if you could touch a little bit more on that and also explain the name and what it means, because I think it's so beautiful. Yeah,
so the name is it's in a different, you know, like 2 languages. So Baai means home. Alkebulan is one of the names of Africa back in the days. So when the Moors used to be obviously traveling and civilizing most of Europe, they used to call themselves Moors, but they said we come from Alkebulan, you know. So that was one of the names of Africa, and as well as, you know, Kush, Ethiopia, or you know, Libya. So these are some of the names in history. We just chose it because it was kind of nice, and we're trying to now use something that's more inclusive. So we're actually transitioning to African libraries, arts and cultural centers, so that it's more inclusive, whereas Baai is like it's more of a Sudanese meaning, so we want something that includes everybody. So and in the idea of third spaces as well is it's really important, because people, that's where they can kind of relieve some stress, you know, and in this day and age where people are always busy, they're stressed with bills, they're stressed with, you know, family issues at home maybe, and they don't have an outlet. So, and some people feel alone, so third spaces are there to just give you somewhere to go and give yourself a chance at, you know, finding networks and friends, and you know, without being forced to like mingle, or it's, you know, you have to do something. So a lot of that, you know, we don't do as much because we are not a wealthy community. We don't have a big culture of, you know, going to a, you know, African club. You can find Italian clubs every corner of the suburbs. But you won't find an African soccer club. You won't find an African school. You won't find an African, you know, community organization that owns their own building much, you know, or, you know, a library, or, you know, some of these little spaces that really make you feel proud. So we hope to be that and sustain it for the young people, but we need all your help. So
you hear that? They need your help. They need your money.
And expertise.
Yes, and expertise. Yes, volunteering, all that kind of stuff. I love.
The best things in life are free, you know. So if we can give our time and space, and you know, our energy and our wisdom, that's sometimes that's all we need. I love. As you were speaking, I was thinking about the idea of how a lot of African cultures are based on that thing of like community living. So like even the way villages will be set up, or like family compounds, is very much communal living. The way we're used to eating certain meals is that communal living. And somewhere along the way we lose it over time, but also with migration we lose that. And I was just thinking about how this is such a great initiative for kind of bringing that back, where it's like you get to bring people back, whether it's for the coffee ceremonies that you guys will want to do, or maybe cooking classes. You can run cooking classes out of here. I won't be anywhere near the kitchen. Sure.
We'll find somebody. But that kind of stuff where you bring people in for this and it was usually around those like spaces where the people are sharing coffee together or eating together, that all these stories about our culture and all the different like beliefs that we had or about family were like passed down and shared, which I think the art and the books that you have in this space also like incorporate into that. So no, I love what you're doing. I'm obsessed. I love it, and we have to make sure we
need to feed our minds, our stomach, everywhere.
Exactly, you know? Everything, bringing it all together. So I guess with the rising use of social media, phones, everything, the disconnectedness within communities, but especially, I guess, African communities overseas. How do you hope this space will help the younger generation in terms of not feeling isolated, not feeling alienated from their culture, and just help with their sense of belonging?
Well, I think for starters, they can come here and see nice artifacts, nice things that represent their culture, also artworks, as well as experts. So they can see a lot of experts who they probably don't see on their daily basis. When we first opened the first space, I met an African psychiatrist, and I was just like, dude, where you guys been this whole time, you know?
They're few and far between.
Then a few doctors, and you know, I met a range, even surgeons, like just around the corner in Footscray. I'm thinking, if a young person can see you, you know, they will know like, hey, I met someone that looked like me, who is, you know, doing this trade or this profession. So that's one thing they can benefit from, speaking and seeing, you know, other people that look like them doing things. We also got the wisdom and knowledge that, you know, these books and all these artifacts can help them gain. And I think at school they mainly touch on like, you know, ancient history, a bit of, you know, Roman history, a bit of, you know, World War II, World War I, and that's about it. Whereas our identity is missed in all of that. On multiculturalism side, it's, you know, we don't have a lot of scholars who then come into schools and push our agendas. So we really have to start tackling the variety of schools that don't know about the African history. So it's a space for them and the, you know, children to come and learn from a safe and, you know, welcoming environment that doesn't judge about what you know or don't know about us. It's just saying, hey, what do you want to learn?
We're here to educate.
So a lot of that is it's about showing what unites us rather than what divides us. And we forget that a lot. We can't just be Africans and live in our own secluded area and just, you know, not try to bring other people into our story and make them understand us. So that takes a little bit of effort to try and bring all the different bodies together, but hopefully we will succeed at some point.
No, we will. I guess this kind of takes us back to the idea of assimilation and maybe blending cultures or whatever. But I think a lot of, I don't know if you've heard this, but a lot of people don't like to get involved or be in third spaces where there are a lot of Africans, just because of their negative experiences that they might have had, or because of preconceived notions about what might be pushed in spaces like that. And so I guess, what do you think is the balance between having these spaces for us where we get to preserve culture, but also I guess having honest conversations about what might be harmful about certain aspects of our culture and what like moving forward can look like?
That's a constant work, you know. We're not at a destination where we can say, you know, we always have to be careful on how we interact with people, making sure that we're not turning them away and we're not, you know, making it hard for entry into our community, because we are trying to be inclusive in all areas. You know, there's a lot of mental health crisis, a lot of youth antisocial behavior, so we really are aware of that and making sure like a lot of that pre-assumptions are we cut them off quickly and make people confident like, hey, there is a space here for you, you know. most of the time people come and they realize, wow, I should have came sooner, you know?
Yeah,
and
I love that.
the idea in their head, and you know, we're not a club, you won't be, you know, drinking shots, you know? It's nice, relax, it's safe, no one is going to disrespect you here. We don't allow that. Everyone is welcome, you know, regardless of your background or, you know, gender. So I think it's something that every organization works on every day, and we should always be aware of that. And in terms of our own people, I completely understand sometimes, you know, where we feel like we don't want to be part of it, but we've got to keep pushing to be united, because if you think we could improve somewhere, come and tell us so that we can keep action your opinions, you know. But I think everybody is kind of working towards that and making everyone feel comfortable.
And if you could like explain, like, what would the big vision, like money is not a problem, other resources, staffing, all that kind of stuff is not a problem, what would Baai Alkebulan look like end goal?
End goal, oh
with
wow.
all the funding, all the resources, everything, what does the end goal look like?
Okay, we would have like Melbourne Grammar School, we would have like, you know, with predominantly African curriculum. You know, making you feel like you belong, and also at the highest level where kids are getting like 90 plus ATARs. And then next to it we'll also have like business center that would have, you know, African businesses, professionals there, almost like Chatston, you know. And then also hopefully develop a tertiary education, you know, and then have that in Melbourne, Sydney, Queensland, you know, in African countries in Africa, have it in the Caribbean, have it in America, have it in all parts of the world, because that is something that we're lacking, building nations, thinking like a nation, you know, mentality. So I think if we can do that, and money is not an issue, everybody can be employed, everyone can be
everybody gets a piece of the pie.
And no one would have that crabs in a bucket behavior where you got to put another brother to, you know. I think financial issues have a lot to do with it. So if we can employ our people, if we can help our businesses and our professionals thrive, I think we'll have a lot of sustainability in the future. I love that. You're thinking like an ecosystem. Everything kind of feeds into everything, and then it feeds back into the community and targets all the other things that we were talking about, which I love. I love. Okay, as we're coming towards the end, this is the final question. I ask this to every guest. What is one thing you think everyone should know about? It can be about anything. That's a tough one.
See, really? I would have thought you would have said African history. I thought that would have been your answer.
Well, African history is, I don't like to say African history because it's like people should know the truth. It's not just specifically African history. I think people should know the truth and be truth seekers. Once you realize like we as Africans have really done nothing wrong to people, but look at our country is getting destabilized every year. There's another coup. You know, so I think truth seeking, honest, you know, to yourself. That's something that people should probably know because it liberates you. You know, I used to hate what Western countries have done to our people. So, but what could I do about it? Is if I'm just angry, is nothing. So, but if I can channel my, you know, my energy, knowledge and the energy into saying, okay, this is what people like Charles Darwin have done. People like, you know, Winston Churchill, for example, in Sudan, what they did. And, you know, people like, you know, Cecil Rhodes, what they did in Rhodesia, or, you know, all these places in there, what they call. If we can accept, hey, this is bad, this was wrong, and let's acknowledge it, people will start moving on and start seeing how we can, you know, heal the wounds, you know? So I think truth seeking is really important, and that's why we always have to go back in history and find out what really happened.
I like that. I like that. Your answer was more polished than what I had thought for you. I like that. And that brings us to the end of this episode. You guys can find all the information on www.baialkebulanhouse.com.
No, baialkebulan.com.
My bad. www.baialkebulan.com.
Yep.
And that is where all the information is also about our next event that we're doing together on the 22nd. And 30% of all ticket proceeds will be going to Baai Alkebulan and just supporting the work that they're doing here, the programs, the workshops, the community outreach, all that kind of stuff. Trying to think, did I forget anything else? Oh, you guys have an Instagram?
Yes. Baai Alkebulan?
Yes.
Or Baai_Alkebulan?
Yes, it's Baai_Alkebulan. Yeah, that's everything.
Yeah.
Is there anything else we need to say to the people?
Well, come down to the Undone podcast. You guys are gonna love it. Great conversations. You know, the host knows how to, direct the conversations, and I know you guys are gonna love it. So please come down.
Yes, thank you.